Senate confirmation hearings for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh begin tomorrow. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are preparing for a fight, especially after the White House decided to withhold 100,000 pages of Kavanaugh's records. CBS's Laura Podesta has details.
Is that this is not normal.
Senate Democrats are criticizing the Trump administration's decision not to release thousands of documents on Supreme Court nominee Judge Brett Kavanaugh, records from his time as a lawyer in President George W. Bush's administration.
The assertion of executive privilege by the White House to take 100,000 documents and say the American people will not get a chance to see them as they reflect on Kavanaugh's background is the first time in history. This denial of access to documents violates a rule that we thought was the tradition of the Senate.
The chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, released a statement supporting the decision to hold some records and provided numbers of how many Kavanaugh-related documents have been turned over. More than 400,000, the most of recent Supreme Court nominees.
Democrats have more than enough information to understand that this is a highly qualified jurist that should be the next Supreme Court justice.
Republicans are hopeful Kavanaugh will win over bipartisan support.
If he does well at the hearing, he will get, my belief is 55 or higher. I think there are a handful of Democrats who will vote for Judge Kavanaugh if he does well, and maybe even more.
Among the topics Democrats are expected to press Kavanaugh on are abortion, interrogation, and special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
Senate Republicans hold a slim 50-49 majority after the recent death of Senator McCain. Right now, they can't afford to lose a single vote if all 49 Democrats vote against Kavanaugh, though that's not a sure thing. Both Montana U.S. Senators Jon Tester and Steve Daines have shared their thoughts on Judge Kavanaugh. Senator Tester says, quote, "I look forward to meeting with Judge Kavanaugh and asking him questions about our right to privacy and women's access to health care. This position is incredibly important, and I am committed to vetting Mr. Kavanaugh to ensure he will uphold Montanans' constitutional rights," end quote. Senator Steve Daines shared his thoughts on Twitter, writing, "Montanans overwhelmingly want a Supreme Court justice with impeccable academic credentials, someone who does not legislate from the bench but upholds the rule of law. Judge Kavanaugh is that person." Meanwhile, Mother Nature did not take a break this Labor Day weekend. No injuries were reported in Kalamazoo County, Michigan after a possible tornado formed over the city. Cars were abandoned in the middle of a Lancaster County, Pennsylvania roadway, and flooding badly damaged the contents of mobile homes. The National Hurricane Center says weather moving through the Gulf could bring 2 to 4 inches of rain to the Florida Keys and South Florida, with as much as 8 inches in parts. Back here in Billings, an altercation sends a man to the hospital after he was run over by an SUV, and 3 men are now behind bars. Police were called to an alley by the downtown Daines around 2:40 this morning. There, they found a 23-year-old man who had been run over by a vehicle. Witnesses told police the victim had gotten into an altercation with a male who was about 25 to 30 years old and was then run over by an SUV driven by a 56-year-old male. The victim was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The investigation is ongoing, and the names of the suspects have not been released. The Montana Department of Corrections is reporting an offender walked away from the Alpha House Pre-Release Center in downtown Billings. Be on the lookout for 36-year-old Travis Reed. He reportedly walked away just after 10 o'clock Sunday night. Reed was sentenced for theft out of Yellowstone County in 2017. He's described as 5 feet 11 inches tall, 182 pounds, with black hair and hazel eyes. He was last seen wearing a light blue polo shirt, blue jeans, and brown flip-flops. Reed now faces a 10-year sentence for felony escape. If seen or if you have any information on his whereabouts, contact law enforcement immediately. Battling the Hal Ridge Fire in Glacier National Park has cost an estimated $7.83 million. The blaze has held steady over the past few days and has burned a little over 12,400 acres and is now 12% contained. There are over 340 people assigned to battle the lightning-sparked blaze. An important reminder for hikers and campers, the majority of Glacier National Park is open. The Hal Ridge Fire is burning in less than 1% of Glacier's 1 million acres. Labor Day spells the end of summer, but in an election year, it's the beginning of the home stretch for campaigns. Montana has some big races this year, including one that means visits to the state twice from the president. MTM's chief political reporter Mike Dennison gives us an overview of the political landscape and what to look for in these final 63 days of the campaign.
The race everyone's watching in Montana is the U.S. Senate contest between Democratic incumbent Jon Tester and Republican challenger Matt Rosendale, the state insurance commissioner. Libertarian Rick Breckenridge also is in the race. President Trump will be in Billings on Thursday for his second campaign appearance on behalf of Rosendale. In this election year, Republicans are banking on the president's popularity in Montana.
The exciting thing is to see the popularity of our president and the fact that his policies are working, and that bodes well, I think, for all Republican candidates, whether it's our local races all the way to the top.
Rosendale has allied himself closely with Trump priorities, such as tax cuts, less regulation, and cracking down on illegal immigration. Next on the ballot is the U.S. House race, where Republican Congressman Greg Gianforte is a favorite to win re-election. Democrat Kathleen Williams of Bozeman hopes to make it a race and perhaps pull a surprise, like she did in winning the Democratic primary this June. Libertarian Eleanor Swanson of Billings is in this contest too. Gianforte is all in with the president, making the election in Montana something of a referendum on Trump. The conventional wisdom says the president's party does poorly in midterm elections, and Trump is often a polarizing figure who can inspire the opposition. But Montana State political scientist David Parker says Trump and Republicans believe they can turn conventional wisdom on its head.
The president's hoping that he can replicate what he did in 2016. He shocked everyone. He's hoping he can come here into some other races and shock everyone again and go against the grain, which is in midterm elections, usually the president's party gets punished.
Democrats in Montana, however, say they're seeing a surge of enthusiasm to provide a counterbalance to the president and his less popular policies.
Folks are knocking doors, they're making calls, they're talking to their neighbors, and we've seen unprecedented amounts of volunteers. I feel really good about where we are at this stage of the game.
The two major parties will battle it out over other positions on the ballot this fall as well. Public Service Commission seats in northwest Montana and north central Montana, local House and Senate contests all across the state, and a statewide contest for clerk of the Supreme Court. And this year's Montana election features two big money contests involving ballot issues. Initiative 185 raises tobacco taxes and makes permanent Montana's Medicaid expansion program, which ensures 100,000 low-income adults. And Initiative 186 would impose new water regulations on future hard rock mines. So not every campaign will hinge on how you feel about President Trump. But whether you're a fan or a foe, you can bet the president will cast a long shadow over what happens here this election year. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Absentee ballots will be mailed out just 6 weeks from now. And before we take a break, thousands came together Sunday to celebrate the 30th annual Reed Point Running of the Sheep. Some say the running of the sheep was inspired by the 1989 Great Montana Cattle Drive.
All right, welcome to Sheep Drive 2018.
Oh, it's a lot of fun to watch it. Some years, we have a few hundred. Some years, the most we ever had was 2,600 head. Typical animals. They go, we try and build a human fence like we're doing here, turn them where we want them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Giving the cattle drive a hard time because, cattlemen and sheepmen have never got along. And so we thought, well, we'd just take a bunch of sheep and run them across the cattle drive.
Oh, good job!
People just really enjoy coming to Reed Point this day. They really do. Because we've got, like, this egg toss thing. That could go on forever.
Then it ends up tonight, they'll have a big street dance until about 11 or 12. By then the families are gone and it's the younger generation out here dancing. Well, some of us older people, but...
If anybody wants to know how many sheep there are, I just count the legs and divide by 4. Just a small town celebration. They like the family atmosphere, and it's a great time.
Just come see us again next year. Hopefully we'll be here.
And we're told about 350 sheep walked through Reed Point, and the event drew about 3,500 people.